So I want to tell my story because I get asked the question almost every day. Most of you, if you know me, you've asked me this question, and it's, how do you find the time? Where do you find the time? I don't know how you do it. It's whatever that comment is. I realize that it's, in some ways it's like we all kind of know where I find the time. I mean, I have the same amount of hours that everybody else does. But I will say that over time, I can confidently say that I do get more value out of my time, clearly, than a lot of people. And I somehow do accomplish more with the same amount of time than many people. Here's the unique things that happened to me and what that did to me and how that changed me as a human being and how now I demand more of my time. If you are not sufficiently obsessed with your dream, you can never be focused enough to manage your time the way that I do. What I'm gonna do in this video is try to actually break it down. What it is for me. What did I go through? What are the things that I've been through in my life that have led me to have the conviction that I do to demand what I demand from my time? Through this video, it's a big promise, but I am going to teach you a superpower. I'm not a superhuman, none of us are, but you can have a superpower. I would personally define a superpower, unique quality or attribute that you consistently demonstrate, because we are nothing but our actions, right? And so it's really a behavior of a particular excellence that is statistically very rare. So I grew up in a small town called Okotoks, Alberta. It's a town that is mostly white. I was one of maybe one or two black kids that I had ever seen in that town, which was a very interesting way to grow up. That's not the way it is here in America. There was racism, who cares? A lot of things happen to people. I'm not wearing it as a badge. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. But it was one of the things that I dealt with. My teachers would tell me to, call me an N-word and tell me to get out of their classroom. Some of you watching this video were there. I also had a tough time at home. My stepdad would knock me unconscious too often. That caused me to run away a lot. By 12, I was running away with a bag, with a plan, and typically the plan was I'm going to my friend's house, a acquaintance house, someone who is allowed to let me sleep on their couch or has convinced their mom or dad to allow me to sleep on their couch or in their spare bedroom. I learned a lot of interesting skills and mentalities about time starting then. I also learned that if I did chores around the house, if I landscaped and mowed the lawn and tried to be really helpful and kind and nice and tried to relate to the parents and to have good conversations with them, that would also make it more likely that that family would let me stay there longer. That changed me. That changes you at 8, 9, 10 years old. That changes your mentality about how you are gonna behave and interact with the world. But it was tough. I had a tough upbringing. I was homeless, in and out, transitory, living in different places, always getting in trouble. Something really important happened. I remember I was living at my friend's house. I had a brutal day. The pivotal moment that made me first turn to basketball as this vehicle to get me out of homelessness and out of this bad life experience that I was having was, I remember looking at myself in the mirror. I was staying at a friend's house. I'd been there for a couple months. The dad was kind of sick of me being there. I don't blame him. I was eating all his food. I'm getting a little emotional putting myself back there, but I just remember looking myself in the mirror, like I'm getting my toiletries, and I was just like looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, this is bullshit. Like, this isn't fair. This sucks. None of my friends have to deal with this, are constantly trying to figure out where to sleep and trying to convince other people's parents to let them live with them. Like, this is brutal. I'm working 5 jobs and playing basketball and trying to be a student. I haven't dropped out. Like, I was still trying to go. My grades weren't great, and my teachers, we had issues, but I was still trying to go to school. And I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, this sucks. And I think it was one of those moments where a lot of people give up. And like, what does give up mean? Yeah, it could mean suicide, but it could also just mean like, I'm gonna deal drugs, I'm gonna commit felonies, I'm gonna do drugs, I'm gonna fuck this, right? It's one of those moments where you're just like, I'm done, I'm not trying anymore, I'm not gonna care anymore, because it's too painful to care, because it's not fair. The situation that I'm in, it's just bullshit, and no one could escape this. No one could possibly reasonably expect me to escape this situation. And you have lots of good excuses. You have so many excuses of why life dealt you a horrible card, and it did, it sucks. Why couldn't I have been born to a normal family? They don't even have to be rich. They could just be normal and not have a stepdad there who's beating me up every day. Like, anything normal would have been fine, right? And I was just talking to myself and like, man, and I had an epiphany. And it was essentially this realization that I can only control some variables. I can't control everything. Just like I couldn't control that dad that night, it was a variable that I couldn't really control. I could influence it by trying to be kind, trying to help out, do chores, be scarce. But at the end of the day, at some point, there's variables that you can't control. I did what I could to influence those variables, to influence them, but you can't control every single aspect of trying to accomplish something or having an objective. And I just decided I'm going to constantly take inventory of the variables that I can control and influence, and I'm just gonna obsessively focus on that. I'm not gonna be distracted by things that I cannot control, read bad things that keep happening to me, because they just keep happening. I'm going to constantly focus all my energy on things that I can do to be productive, to make things happen for myself. I'm not gonna wait around expecting anything good to happen, right? I actually developed an expectation that bad things were gonna happen, but I tried to plan for the bad things, which gives you some peace of mind. And hey, guess what? It actually works. And so I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna give up, I'm committed. And that mentality changed my life. I think it unlocked a superpower. But the first way that it manifested itself was you're taking inventory of the variables that you can control and the assets that you have and the opportunities that you have in your life. And I didn't have many. Basketball was really the only thing that I could think of. It was the only tool by which I could even fathom a successful life. Because I could get a scholarship and go to college. I could even go to the NBA, but all of those things, whether it's academically or professionally through athletics, all of that was possible through basketball. And so that became the initial vehicle that I put a lot of focus into to get me out of that situation. I had a couple really influential people. You never get there alone. I had some influential coaches, some really amazing mentors and great families who did a lot for me and helped me get to practice, get to the tournaments, and I raised money. People donated to allow me to be able to travel to games from the community. So I had some help, right? Not really from home, but I had some help.